Welcome to the Descenso Zone podcast, where we talk about creativity and personal growth through a lens of curiosity and humor. My guest today is a double PhD and leading addiction recovery expert who's spent over 2 decades helping people rebuild their lives. His approach focuses on treating the root causes of addiction, combining neuroscience, behavioral research, and lived experience as a recovered alcoholic himself. We talk about his journey from homeless alcoholic to recovery expert, understanding addictions and his approach to overcoming them, and the role of trauma and subconscious patterns in addictive behavior, and much more. Now, let's get into the zone with Dr. Robb Kelly. Dr. Robb Kelly, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Mike. Great to be here.
I'm really excited and interested to talk to you, not only to dive into your expertise around addiction and recovery, but also to share your personal story because it's a really compelling one. But first, I wonder if you could just lay out some of your credentials for us so we have a sense of who you are.
Yeah, so the top ones are a PhD in behavioral science and a PhD in psychology. And I'm a neuroscience expert. So I've been studying neuroscience for about 10 years before everybody knew about changing the brain. We just always knew that you could change pathways and change thought patterns, therefore change behaviors for years and years and years. But I'm always trying to learn and trying to, educate myself. The more neuroscience I know, the better we can heal.
The fact that you have multiple PhDs and all this experience behind you really speaks to your credibility, but also the fact that you yourself suffered from an addiction, I think it gives you a grounded sense of credibility as well in the fact that, you've overcome this yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about how that story came to fold?
So alcoholism was rife in my family, and there was also a musical family. So by the age of 9, I'm playing on stage with my auntie and uncle in a trio band, doing all the pubs and clubs. And I took my first drink at the age of 9. And it continued from there. I used to drink every weekend, never think anything of it. Alcoholism wasn't really known in the late 70s or middle 70s. And it progressed over the years and years and years. And even though I was very successful and a very successful musician, it eventually took everything: kids, wife, everything, businesses, homes, holiday homes. And I ended up homeless on the streets with absolutely nothing. And I mean nothing. Begging for food, stealing alcohol. And I actually died twice on the streets in Manchester. And the guys brought me back to life, and I hated them paramedics for that.
Wow.
But yeah,
How old were you at the time?
Really I want to say first got sober at 28, 26. 26, 27-ish. So
Wow.
I'd done the college and everything, yeah. So I'm probably the only guy homeless telling everyone I'm a doctor, I have a PhD, and they're all laughing at me, saying, yeah, of course you do.
So when you hit that sort of rock bottom, what did that feel like for you practically and psychologically, especially when you had all this knowledge already?
I think there's a shock. I think that's what most people don't understand. It's like you don't know you are where you are. And alcoholics never think they have a problem. And you took me 14, 15 months on the street to realize I had a problem. All the losses and everything, because it's down to neuroscience. The hypothalamus is the victim here, or the culprit, sorry. Survival part of the brain. It hijacks the brain. We'll get into that later. So it's kind of shocking that I'm in this position, especially, I came from nothing. Mike, I came from the projects. My family had no money, kind of a self-made person, but couldn't beat alcohol. Just couldn't beat it.
You succeeded in beating it. So what was that journey like for you? Were you using knowledge that you had yourself? Did you seek out help? How did you get from where you were to where you are now?
So I had a spiritual experience, which as an atheist, I didn't believe in, but something happened on the streets early hours of the morning after 14 months. And I met a guy who walked around the corner, middle of nowhere, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And he asked if he could help me. And my journey went from there. And then next day, I met this other guy called John, who taught me everything I know now. And then after we finished, after 12 weeks, we could never trace him or find him. He never lived where he lived. Nobody saw him at the meetings, crazy stuff. But that's where it changed for me when I first met Derek. I remember on the streets, I fell down to my hands and knees. And I was sobbing like a baby, but I wasn't sobbing because I'd lost my family, my money, my children. Right there and then, that achy sob from the stomach, is when I realized I couldn't stop drinking. And it took all of that to bring me down to that level.
So it was that realization that really flipped the switch for you. One thing I've heard you say before is that addiction isn't about drinking, but thinking. So what was your thinking back then?
Self-destruction. So alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism. So am I saying it's not a drinking problem, it's a thinking problem? Now, how do I know this? Well, when I was homeless and stood outside a liquor store at 5 a.m., a Pakistani gentleman, it was kind of a liquor store, news agents, they couldn't sell alcohol till 10 a.m. But he knows who I am. He knows I'm suffering. I don't know how, but he knew. So every morning when he came down to open the store, get ready for 7 a.m. when they opened, if I was outside, he would let me in. Now, on this occasion, I was shaking. That's how I was. I couldn't put a sentence together. I had my 10 pound in my hand. I have a vest on, pair of shorts, flip-flops. It's snowing and I'm sweating profusely, which basically means if I don't get to hospital or get alcohol in my body real soon, I'm probably going to fit and I'm probably going to die. So I snuck in. Remember putting my 10 pound on the counter and him putting the bottle on the counter. And this is what happened. Hey, buddy, great mood. Sweating stopped, ache stopped, headache went. Everything was absolutely amazing. I remember holding the bottle. The cap was still on, not opened it. Looking like slow motion at the shopkeeper and then looking back and thinking, oh my God, it's not about the alcohol. And when I finally got off the streets, that was my mission, to find out what was that about. And our test and trials, because we spent about $1.5 million on testing and research, is the most exciting part from an alcoholic when he decided to drink, was the drive to the liquor store or the drive to the drug dealer. That was the most intoxicating part, not the drug or the alcohol. So that's what set me on this path.
Do you find any results from that research in terms of like, what was it about the drive? Was it the dopamine releasing in anticipation of the alcohol, or what kind of results did you find from that?
Yeah, so we're going to neuroscience a bit in the brain. We go to that hypothalamus. What happens is alcoholics are born with 3 parts of the brain that differ to any other addiction: hypothalamus, basal ganglia, and the amygdala. So when the hypothalamus finally hijacks the brain of an alcoholic, because alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made, the hypothalamus tells the prefrontal cortex, if you don't drink, you're going to die. If you don't drink, you're going to die. And it's constant in the head, and it convinces us. That's why I can go days or weeks without food or water, and families go bye-bye, because the survival part of the brain is telling me to drink. So when I get in a position where I'm heading towards that, everything feels amazing, even though I've not got there, because I'm anticipating, and the dopamine boost and the serotonin boost is all happening at the same time, because I know I'm going to get it. When I get the bottle or the drug and I take it after 10 or 15 seconds, I'm in blackout. So I know it's not the alcohol. And we've tested 20 people over the years with this, where we picked them up when they were going to relapse, friends of ours, and we drive them to the liquor store or the drug dealer and drive them back home, and we wired them up to the head and the chest, and the heartbeat got a lot faster when they were in the car. Wow. And then calmed right down.
I want to just step back to something you said, because I thought it was really interesting. This idea that alcoholics are born and drug addicts are made. What do you mean by that?
So alcoholics have a predisposition. We've traced it back. We've traced the alcoholic gene, new research, new neuroscience. We're talking to Kennedy right now, our health minister. So we've been doing this. Well, we found out this about 2 years ago, but research papers have just gone in. So we're born with a predisposition. We're allergic to the ethanol in alcohol. The hypothalamus that hijacks the brain, the basal ganglia, is broken. So our repetition, strength, and confirms part of the brain. When you learn to drive a car or something, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. With alcoholics, what we found, if you can imagine a clock face, it's like 12 o'clock, everything's good. 10 after I relapse, 20 after I'm a mess, half past the wife and the kids let me back in. At 20 to the hour, I get that job offer, and at 10 to the hour, smash everything down again and relapse. That's why, unless them 3 parts of the brain are fixed by the stuff that we do, the neuroscience and the breath box that we created, as long as normal somatic experience and brain spotting, it will always repeat and break and always repeat and break. And that's why people say, I've been like sober for a week, 2 weeks, 2 years. then all of a sudden, for no reason, I find myself drinking.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. One word you mentioned there that I wasn't familiar with is brain spotting. Can you help me unpack what brain spotting is?
Brain spotting has only been out about 4 years. Time goes over here, guys. Bear with me if it's 6 or something, but it was created because there was a guy, a scientist, who knew that the eyes held the direct route into the subconscious brain. So there's a technique, and it's with an instrument that you move, a bit like EMDR, but no lights, but it's more in depth because you stay with the, let's say, I have a little like a wand thing with an orange tip, and we're looking for the eyes to flicker. So as the eyes are going, following the wand with the orange tip, when you see a flicker of the eye, that's trauma. And we will stay there for 2 minutes to 2 hours waiting, and eventually it starts coming out. It's the darnest thing. But it's
Sorry, so what do you
amazing.
mean by trauma? Like so you flash this light in front of someone's eye, and
Not a light.
it's not a
Yeah,
light.
it's just like a wand, or you can actually use a pen.
The
The eye
flicker.
will flicker back and forward.
Uh-huh.
Just flash for a second. It'll move rapidly back and forward. That's a subconscious brain trauma that's just been ignited. And if you wait there long enough with the right questions, you can draw that trauma out that the patient doesn't know about. And all of a sudden, they'll start talking about something that happened as childhood. Most of it's molestation by father. And then the tears start, but we bring it out because everybody has childhood trauma. And if you don't think you have, you're probably worse than others because the brain is blocking it away from you. Believe me, everybody has childhood trauma. And if it's not fixed, it dictates your behavior and success today as a human being. So if you can't keep a job, can't keep a girl or guy, things are not going amazing, it's childhood trauma. Go back, uncover, discover, discard. That's what all the tools we use, including this new software we have, and get rid of that stuff and work in it for you to move forward. And 90% of people that are walking around today never deal with the childhood trauma. So they're stuck in this repetitive cycle, humdrum, that they'll never make anything of themselves and eventually don't want to. And they're okay claiming unemployment and doing nothing all day. It's all down to learned behavior, enmeshment, and childhood trauma.
Childhood trauma is connected to addiction and substance abuse is what you're suggesting. Is that right?
100%.
If everyone has some form of childhood trauma, why doesn't everyone become addicted to a substance?
Everybody is addicted to something. That's the key. Everybody. Now, whether that be the gym or drugs or, dieting or running, everybody's addicted to something. 92%-ish of people that come to me with a staunch heroin addiction or crack cocaine addiction started in the doctor's office. So it's the addictive personality that kicks drug addiction up. So you can take enough drugs to become a drug addict, but you can't drink enough alcohol to become an alcoholic. It doesn't work like that. And that's where Johnny around the corner, he drinks a bottle a day. He's an alcoholic. Truth of the matter is that alcoholism is the only self-diagnosed illness in the world. 10 DWIs does not make me an alcoholic. I have to look into my family history, the hereditary, who's had a drinking problem before, and trace that back. When I take the first drink, can I stop? Huge indicators that you are an alcoholic.
I just want to dig in a little deeper on this idea that alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made, because that sounds counterintuitive. It sounds almost like you would expect a drug addict to fall into similar categories as an alcoholic in terms of what's happening in the brain, but that's not the case.
Well, if alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism, then what's it about? It's about the brain, the conscious and subconscious and the prefrontal cortex and stuff. So it's, when you look at it like that, when I take my first drink as a child, it sets off a key factor of them 3 parts of the brain that mix with the childhood trauma and my surroundings, that at a certain point, that might be 10 days, 10 years, 20, 30 years, where the hypothalamus kicks in. And this is why it's a disease, because you don't have any choice over the hypothalamus kicking in. Whereas the drug addict is just taking a lot of drugs to become a drug addict. They both show up the same. They both just as bad. What we're talking about, the neuroscience behind it, and the epigenetics behind addiction it's absolutely fascinating. And people, they are not the same. People want to bunk, oh, it's all addiction. It's not. Not when you get down to the neuroscience of it. It's not. You can cure. We cure addiction. Any kind of addiction we will cure. We have a 98% success rate and a money back guarantee if that doesn't happen. Now, you can't cure alcoholism because of the hypothalamus, but there's no cure for the common cold or food poisoning. So you can fully be recovered from food poisoning, alcoholism, no problems at all. And as long as you stick to a daily routine, because everything's about patterns, you probably will never drink ever again or take drugs ever again. But it's just not a case of stopping drinking. Well, I've stopped drinking, everything's good, you'll relapse. If you're a real alcoholic and you've done no work, you will relapse. And this will go on until you die. And the only reason that this is not in the media, in the main media, is somebody who's fit and healthy in America is a lost client. If they can't give you pills, if they can't stick you in treatment, I mean, the pharmaceutical companies rule the world. So the food industry gets us sick. Pharmaceutical company, it puts a Band-Aid on and keeps us sick. Anybody who's listening to this today, have you ever been to the doctors with an ailment? Okay, we're not talking about antibiotics. We're talking about an ailment or illness or disease where they've given you medication. You've taken the medication. It's cured the disease, and you never have to take the medication again. And the answer is, of course, it's not. Of course you can't. It's impossible. So when we look with that against the food, which we've tied gaming and food to addiction, it all rolls into one. It's like, we don't know what we're eating. We don't know what we're taking. Alcoholism and addiction is rife in our country, but, and here's the but, it's not reported properly. It's dumbed down. How do we know this? We did our research in Richardson Hospital in Dallas, where we were allowed to talk to patients coming in Friday and Saturday night for about a month, I think it was. We found out that 91%, I'm pulling these figures, it's not exactly, but about 91% of people that come through the doors of emergency room on a Friday and Saturday had alcohol or drugs inside them. Out of the 91%, 40% of those were kept overnight. They were that serious. Of those 40%, 2% died. Not one mention of drug overdose or alcohol poisoning. It went down as heart failure, liver failure. They can't expose it. There's too much tax to be earned from alcohol, the sales of alcohol.
Obviously more light needs to be shed on this. And that's why one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you about it. One thing you mentioned was this idea of epigenetics. For anyone who might, including myself, not fully understand what epigenetics is, can you unpack that for us and let us know how it's connected to addiction?
Well, it's basically this. So Randy Jertle is the grandfather of epigenetics back in the, I want to say 90s. He's a very good friend of mine. He studied how food and environment can have surroundings on our thinking, on our cell behavior and on our brain behavior. And it became apparent that if we're not getting the food and proteins that we need, there becomes a deficiency, and the deficiency can affect our future and our life and our thought patterns and everything. And we see that today. So we've gone from epigenetics founder really putting a spotlight on this over here at the beginning of our journey is very, very important because it will affect several illnesses and diseases. Now we've done a 180 around where most of the stuff you buy from the store is saturated in canola oil or sunflower oil and all sorts of crazy stuff that we can't, GMO stuff that they never even say. It might be a little tiny bit in the corner of a packet somewhere, but we're eating it. And now what happens is this. People think generally that if my dad had heart disease, then I get heart disease, then it's hereditary. Now, biologically impossible. Now think about this for a second and follow me, guys. Let's say, and he doesn't know, dad can't methylate beans. It's a simple way to put it. When he can't methylate beans, so what we put in our mouth is not used in the sauce. It has been methylated into the sauce we can use as a human being. Now, if I can't methylate the beans, well, there becomes a deficiency in my body pertaining to the proteins and everything that's in beans. So if I can't process it, there becomes a deficiency. The deficiency causes the illnesses. There's only two reasons for illnesses in America and around the world: toxicity and deficiency. What am I being poisoned by? and what am I deficient in? So when I'm deficient in something, it causes the illness. So let's say I leave home and I am on the same staple diet as back home. On Friday night, we had beans or fish and chips. I stick to that diet. What happens is, I don't know, but I can't methylate the beans just like my dad. So I get heart problems and I think I've cut it off my dad. And it's just not true. So we tie to what we put in our body to how we perform today. And it's the craziest thing when you tie it back. So addiction becomes prevalent when we tie it back and look at the epigenetics around it. And we look at hereditary building around alcoholism. Then when you take that first drink, you are 100%, like 100% going to turn out to be an alcoholic that can't stop drinking.
Is there such thing as an alcoholic who is in recovery who can have a beer with a friend? Or is there no shot? Once you're an alcoholic, you just have to cut it all out?
Yeah, if you're a real alcoholic. So again, alcoholic is bandied around so freely these days. But if what they call a real alcoholic, they're hereditary and all that stuff that we talked about, no, never. Because again, it's not about the alcohol. So how do we know this? Well, alcohol will never come on a Friday night and say to me, Mike, let's go and have a drink, Rob. It's a week or 2 weeks before my behavior changes. Why I'm pissed that you've got a small TV behind you and I wanted to see a big TV. So I'm pissed off with you today. That's where it starts. So it's not about the alcohol. I know people that were born into alcoholic families, and it skips generations, but born into alcoholic families who never drank. They're the guys running the countries. They're the guys running the Googles and all that kind of stuff, the big multi-trillion-dollar companies, because we are geniuses. Geniuses. Now, in the early stages, there is a chance of you stopping, but the problem is with alcoholism is it's a disease that creeps up on you. You don't know it's creeping up on you. Next minute, like me, you're drinking a bottle of vodka at 5:30 in the morning around the garden thinking, what's all the problem about? I don't know why everyone's talking about it. So it's a progressive illness. You never get better. You always get worse with alcoholism because it just never gets better. Even when people relapse, I always ask them, how was the relapse? Horrible. So it wasn't any good? No. And then we did our work around that. Why is it we can stay sober for 5 years, and if we do relapse, it's like going right back to where I just left off? That's what people say. It was just like yesterday. I took my last drink. It didn't give me any days of I could enjoy it. It was right back. And the neural pathway patterning behind that is what we trialed. Is alcoholic patterning around the brain with alcoholics. If you're going to start something like riding a bike or something, there is neural pathways to do that, to build it up so you can now ride a bike without thinking about it. But when you stop riding a bike, neural pathways pertaining to that basal ganglion learning episode decrease. So when you get back on a bike, once you've been on a bike, you can ride, but it might take a few seconds or minutes before they are fully restored. With alcoholics, the neural pathways for self-sabotage, we finished there. You try and get sober. You go into treatment for 30 days. You stay sober for 2 years. You see what happens to this. It does not move. It doesn't do this like the riding the bike. It stays there. So when we do relapse, if you don't do your work, which will happen, you start off right back where you left off, because these neural pathways are going nowhere. And that's what makes the alcoholic. It's loads of...
Forgive me if I missed it, because there's a lot there. But so why is it that if you go to ride a bike, those pathways can shrink down? Because I know I've ridden a bike after several years of not having ridden one, and you're a little wobbly at first. It takes you a minute to get back into the swing of things. But you're saying for an alcoholic, that's not the case. So what is different about it? Is it just a different part of the brain? Is it a different pathway? How come that there's a disconnect there?
Tied to the hypothalamus and the learning behavior of the basal ganglia, they're self-sabotaging neural pathways.
So the basal ganglia is like the neurons that are
the basal ganglia is the repetitive part of the brain.
Okay.
So if you want to ride a bike, it seems you've got to spend 6-7 hours trying to learn, because imagine a clock face, it goes around so many times before becoming a working part of the brain. Once it becomes a working part of the brain, the basal ganglia has done its job. It's like trying to fly a commercial jet. You need 10,000 hours in the air.
Helping you essentially form habits.
Yes.
Understood.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
You touched on this idea that everyone has some form of addiction and some are worse than others. I mean, some things that come to mind, alcohol, of course, hard drugs, but there's also things like food, social media, caffeine,
Yeah.
pornography, gambling, video games, so the list goes on and on. Do you change your strategies if someone comes to you with a different kind of addiction?
With the addiction, not with alcoholism, it's the same. With addiction, 100%, even though it's the program is basically based on repetitive neuroscience behavior and patterning of the brain that needs to reset completely. Is whether it's gambling or whether it's sex, it's the same self-sabotage behavior that the brain is created from childhood with enmeshment from caregivers or teachers or parents that pass on them traits. So if you, let's say there's a girl in a house where father's the alcoholic, mom's the housewife, but the child, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, sees dad coming home 2 or 3 times a week, drunk, and they get into a fist fight. Him and dad and mom get into a fist fight, and this punch is thrown, and she's cowering in the corner because she doesn't know it's violence, but she hates it because mommy's getting hurt. And the next morning, they both get up and go, "Oh, I'm sorry about last night. I love you. Oh, you too, dear. It was okay. I love you too." She equates violence to love. So when she eventually leaves their house, and this is the enmeshment and learned behavior, she will 9 out of 10 times attract the same guy that ends up beating her, to the fact that if she finds a good guy that takes care of her, she'll self-sabotage that relationship because it doesn't feel real, because violence equals love. And it's the same thing with any addiction. As we grow up, some say it's good, some say it's bad. I train every day, it's a good addiction. Well, it is, but, and here's the but, if you're going on a family vacation to Spain or something, and the first thing you do when you land the plane is search for the nearest gym, you have a problem, my friend.
So even quote unquote healthy things can be addictive. One thing I've heard Dr. Andrew Huberman say, and I'm curious your take on it, is that addiction is the narrowing of things that bring you pleasure. I wonder if you agree with that take.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of it is control. Like sex is rape and stuff like that. It's not about the sex. It's about control. Food as well. It's not about the food. It's not that you're hungry. It's about control over your body. So you find this thing that you can get addicted to that makes you feel good because life sucks and everything else is terrible and you're grossly overweight. So you keep going back and keep going back and keep going back to that comfort zone. And that's what people do in life. They keep going back to that comfort zone. There was a young girl in Manchester, 1969, 15, 16, schoolgirl, blonde hair, blue eyes, snatched off the side of the road. There was a huge manhunt in England for her, could not find her. 3 months later, she was presumed dead. 9 months later, a police car is following another car down a country road. He has a broken back light, so they pull him over. Now, back in the day, they didn't have computers, so they would ask the driver one question. Is this your car? Yeah. What's in the trunk? 2 questions, sorry. And if he said, well, a pair of boots and a yellow jacket, and he opened the trunk and he was a pair of boots, yeah, but it's his car. But this guy they pulled over was cagey. What they did when they opened it is they found a stolen screwdriver. So now they're allowed to go back to the house and find out what else he stolen. And sure enough, lawnmowers, ladders, drills. And they come across this box in the corner. It was about 4 foot high by about 12 foot wide. And it had a huge padlock on it. And the police said, "We know you have more stolen stuff in there." And they smashed the lock, opened the box, and there was the girl that went missing 9 months ago. She was alive. She was bruised and battered. He used to take her out every day. And you can imagine what happened for 9 months. The police woman leant over. She took this girl's hand and she helped her sit outside the box. She took her police coat off. She wrapped it around the little girl. What's the first thing the girl did? She got back in the box. And that is learned behavior. And that's what most of us do in life.
Wow, because the box became a safe haven for her.
Even though it was painful.
Wow.
At least she knew what was going to happen.
You're equating that to the coping mechanism of drugs and alcohol in the sense that like you can, even though you know it's maybe bad for you, it's something that is, I guess, comforting in a way, even if it's a discomforting comfort.
100%. Yeah, because we know. Like we stay in marriages too long. We stay in jobs too long. We stay in relationships too long because we don't like change. The brain in general doesn't like change. It needs to get into the pursuits of death is that pursuit of comfort. We like to get in that comfort, even if we know it's not good for us, we continue down that route. It's like if anybody came up with a cure for cancer, you won't be able to get an appointment for 10 years because that practice will be slammed every day. We've come up with a cure for addiction, and there's lots of other cures out there, and people don't want to know because they want to stay over here because, I've made this life for myself, even though they dream one day of being this. I pulled up in a gas station 2-3 weeks ago, and I have a Bentley that I bought myself as a thank you, good job, about 6 months ago. And he got out and he said, one day I want to be you. And I said, what's stopping you? And he stood in his tracks and looked at me. I said, do you not know that you can do anything else in the world that you want to do? And he went, is it what? I said, yeah, because you know why? Nobody's watching you and you can really do anything you want to do. And he smiled and got back in his car. Makes a huge difference. Stop believing what people tell you who you are. Stop believing that what you have is good enough. The only reason, or one of the reasons why I'm so glad that I've made it and I'm wealthy is 25% of our income, me and my wife, goes back out into communities that are struggling, people that are struggling, families that are struggling. Because I can't spend this on my own, that's for sure. It gives me higher platforms. It gives me a broader amount of people we can reach because everybody deserves to heal. And whether that's violence in the home or heroin addiction, everyone has the chance and can heal from that and have an amazing life. But you got to smash the box.
I wanted to ask about this, what you said about having a cure for addiction, because your 98% program suggests that 98% of people get cured. Is that the idea?
Correct.
And that program is sort of immersive program with therapy, but in other words, it's not a drug-based program. There's no medical intervention to cure the addiction.
No, it's that there's another myth as well, Mike, that you can cure a drug addiction with another drug. No, it's called a taper to lessen the pain. But if you're still on a taper 12 months after, you're a drug addict. You're still taking drugs.
A taper, a taper meaning like if you're a cocaine addict, for example, you just start taking a little bit less cocaine, or is it a completely different drug?
There's lots of medications. Let's say heroin, there's Suboxone, and you take the Suboxone because it's supposed to be less damaging than heroin, but it's just as hard to get off. So most people that go on Suboxone stay on Suboxone. So a taper is to lessen the pain and the frequency when you're coming off a hardcore like crack back into normal life. And after a certain period, short period, like a month, 2 months, 3 months at the most, you completely taper off and come off the Suboxone. So then you're drug free. But the pharmaceutical companies don't want you to understand that. They say, well, if you go on our Suboxone because we're earning trillions and trillions off you, then you're clean and sober. And no, you're not. I don't know what. I never got that. It's like treating my alcoholism without whiskey, giving me wine instead. And on what level is that? Does that make any sense? But you can imagine the chairman of a pharmaceutical company, Purdue, let's say, and they sat there on the board and somebody said, we are losing billions of dollars on the streets because of heroin's flooded America. And we are losing trillions even. And somebody said, well, what if we make like a substance that is like heroin, but we can put you on. And then if we need to, well, I don't know what we're going to call it. Well, let's call it Suboxone. And then we can convince people because it's a medical drug, a pharmaceutical drug, that it's safe to take and you're no longer a drug dealer. And the world bought it.
I can totally buy that that's the case. This idea of taking other drugs to get off drugs is a pretty old idea, even with smoking, right? There was the nicotine patches. Is that sort of the same idea?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, you go back and you do some research, which I don't think's ever been done around patches to smoking. I don't know. But from the people I know that went smoking and went on patches, went back to smoking. So it's not the substance, it's the brain. and the patterns and the self-sabotage pathways and the behavior around that is what drives us back every single time.
I wonder what you think about, I don't know if you've ever seen that show, My Strange Addiction, but there's some
Yes.
very bizarre addictions in terms of people eating mattress foam or drinking cleaning products. Is that all that same kind of pathway that's just activating in a different way?
I believe so. So when I was about 8, 9, 10, we in England we used to have coal. That's what powered, the fires and stuff. It was coal. And we used to get the coal delivery every Monday morning, for instance. And when I would be found lots of times sat on the coal stack in the cellar licking coal. And I was addicted to licking coal. That's the first time I've told that story ever with the thousands of podcasts I've done. So yeah, definitely, it's the same mentality of repetition, strengthens and sometimes destroys.
Is it the comfort factor? Like what was appealing to you about the coal?
It was comfortable. It was once I got to do it a few times, it became my place. It became my secret. It became my, little place I could go to not be the person that was getting bullied or the person that was, getting hammered down clothes and, stuff like that. So it became that special place for me, which obviously turns into an addiction because the more you do it, the more you enjoy it.
Right. It's almost like it's a form of escapism.
Yes. Yeah,
And
definitely.
escapism can show up in so many ways too. I mean, people go to the movies to escape. They
Hmm.
watch a TV show to forget about their life and
Yep.
get absorbed into the life of someone else who's fighting dragons or whatever the thing is, just to
Yes.
take them out of it.
Yeah.
So that's really really interesting. Now, I know you've worked with rock stars and actors and celebrities and athletes. Do addictions show up differently for people who are hyper successful than they do for average people?
No. So I love that question, Mike. Nobody's asked me that question before. The problem with mega rich people and mega famous people is time on their hands. And the addiction or the alcoholism is just the same, but then you're surrounded by yes men. So if you said you want to take some drugs or get some alcohol, no one's going to say, hey, I tell you what, that's not a good idea. Then they go into treatment centers that cater for their every need. So you go to, the 100 grand a month treatment centers and you're doing yoga and massages and expect that to get you well. And if the real deal, it won't get you well. So they are very hard. There's a story with probably there's loads of rumors on the internet who I've worked with. Some I have, some I haven't. Don't know where they come from. But Eddie Van Halen always said on any kind of addiction show or what, you've got to tell the story. And he came over with yes men all around him. And I've been here for a month in this country, Mike. I didn't know who Eddie Van Halen was. I have no idea who I mean, I've heard the guitar and I've heard this, but I don't know who he is. And then I'm waiting at the airport and he comes, just him on his own. And he walks up to me. He said, Dr. Robb. And I said, yes. He said, I'm Eddie. Yeah, oh, great to meet you, man. He went, Eddie Van Halen. I said, yeah. Shouldn't you have recognized me and me not recognizing you? Okay, buddy, here we go. Get back on that plane and get back home because I'm not working with you because you're an idiot. Well, hang on a sec. We've just paid you. Oh, I don't give a shit what you've paid me. I don't care about that. I care about getting you well. If you're not interested, I'm not interested. See, here's the deal, Eddie. I don't give a shit whether you come on this program or not. I really don't, but if you do, then you're my guy. If you don't, get on the plane and go. And I started to walk out. And as I'm walking out the airport, I'm like, oh my God, he's really going to get on the plane, but whatever. And he came running out and he's laughing and, he thanked me for that. When he finished the program after 90 days, we often talk about that and did talk about after he signed his new record contract and stuff. But there's 1,000 stories like that. I mean, you've got to treat addiction and alcoholism as if you're fighting for somebody's life, because at a point where they're beyond sanity, so the definition of a sanity is me not being able to see my own truth. So they can't see that they're in this much trouble. It's my job to make them see and change the way they think and behavior around that activity or substance or alcohol. So they're just like, I'll give it a go. And we're like, no, we don't give it a go in this company. You either in 100% or you leave and go back home again. And we turn a handful of mega rich pop stars away because they wanted to call the shot, and it's not going to happen.
If a celebrity is going to a quote unquote rehab clinic that's sort of doing the yoga and playing tennis and is, not as serious as your program, what is different about your program outside of the fact, like, I understand that they don't have as much say. You are more in control of what they're doing, but what are they doing on a day-to-day basis? Is it therapy? Is it, if they're going into withdrawal, or are there, things that they have to do? Like, what does the process look like for you on day one of 90?
So if they need to get detox, we'll rush them to detox. We'll keep them there for 5 days, making sure that they're stable. And then we are no longer inpatient with telehealth only, unless you're in San Antonio or Dallas or Manchester, London, Switzerland, Spain. If you're near them offices, you can go daily and do the program there. But a lot of it is telehealth. So it's 1 hour a day. And there's certain things you need to do that day to walk through your program and make sure that things are done. And we're using a lot of technology with the breath box and the 9D stuff, as well as subliminal messaging every single time we meet, behavior change, psychology, behavioral science, trauma, heavy trauma work. It's a 3 count and you're out. We know what we can do, and we know that we can cure addiction. And I can almost hear people screaming at the street. No, it's new neuroscience. Go research us and see what we're doing. And if you're not 100% into that we're excited about, then go away, man. It's very strict. You will get fired. I have fired so many people, and they were waiting for the callback. I don't do a callback, man. I'm sick to death of watching people die. And just because you're blah, blah on stage and think it all out, you want to start mess with my program and mess with my reports and mess with my success rate because you can't be bothered. You're not our guy. Go away. You are not our guy. And I saw a thing in a magazine about 2 years ago. I was doing a conference in Canada, and the headline on the magazine was "Controversial Doctor from Texas." I ain't controversial. I'm not taking any of your shit. That's all it is. You either get well or you don't. We have the answer. You don't think we had. Come try us. I'll give you your money back if we don't get you well. Nobody in the world does that because we're serious about this stuff, man. So, a lot of people are not our guys, and I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what people think about me. You think I care what some guy who's 45 years old back at his mum's house because the kids don't want to see him commenting on what I do? You think I give a shit? I used to. Don't get me wrong, Mike, but the last 5 years, I don't. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm already world famous. I already got this. I've already got 11,000 pages. I've done everything, and I'm still doing it. So your comments don't make a difference to me. Because I know one thing, Mike. Everybody who's doing as good as you or better, who's healing as good as you or better, will never comment on what you are doing. And that goes for everybody, guys. Take that on board. So if somebody's making snark remarks against what you are doing in life, trying to better yourself, if they're as good as you or better, they'll never make that remark.
I just had a similar conversation on a previous podcast about this idea of mean comments and how we just didn't understand the logic around mean comments. But I don't want to veer too far into that because there's so much to talk about. When someone does heal, you mentioned it's a 90-day sort of program. Is neurological healing done at 90 days? Is that like the time window that it takes typically? I'm sure it's different for everyone, but is that how long it takes for the brain to sort of rewire itself?
So rewire and chemical resettlement and learned behavior repatterned is around 90 days. Is the solidification of pathways. So again, billions of neural pathways in the brain, 300 die every day. What you're replacing them with is that kind of thing. And around 90 days, the new subliminal messaging and patterning and deadening of self-harm pathways is repaired. So it's kind of our lucky number. Now, for treatment centers, it used to be an insurance thing. People would only pay, insurance would only pay for 90 days. And as the last 10, 15 years have gone by, the insurance companies have said, hey, why are we paying for Johnny's 17th time in treatment center? So they've cut it down to a month now, and that's all you get in treatment centers. It's a month. And after a month, it's self-pay, man. They're not going to keep you there.
One thing that was always of interest to me was the idea of implicit memory. I learned about this in school, and implicit memory and explicit memory are sort of the dichotomy, explicit memory being things you can actively remember and implicit memory being things you sort of don't know that you know.
Yeah.
So when you mention subliminal messaging, in what way are you using subliminal messaging, and how is that helping your patients?
So if you tell the brain to do something 9 out of 10 times with the addictive personality, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. And we will fight against it. So change has to come. Change has to come from directly into the subconscious brain. So subliminal messages and NLP is planted messages, patterning, self-dialogue into the subconscious brain without the patient know that we're doing it.
Sorry,
So you can
NLP
plant
being neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes, neuro-linguistic programming. So we're teaching you a different language, but we're also putting stuff in the subconscious brain that you don't hear or see. So for instance, new patient calls on Friday, passes the assessment, because you have to pass an assessment to come here. We just don't take you, and starts Monday. My researchers, I'll be researching the hell out of him over weekend. And on Sunday night, we'll all get together on a meeting, and this is typically how it goes. Okay, so blah, blah, age 51, loves the Dallas Cowboys, has 2 daughters that actively horse ride, doing events and stuff. Wife's such and such a thing. She's a nurse. And we get all this information and we put it into action. So when he pulls into the car park outside, when he gets out, he won't see it, but there'll be a lodged empty can of something with the Dallas Cowboys on it in a hedge. So that if you were looking for it, you'd see it. But if you wasn't looking for it, then we'd cone the car park off. So he has one place to park that's free, that starts a subliminal messaging. When he comes to the door, one of my girls will open the door wearing a Dallas Cowboys shirt or a hat or a watch, anything to do with the Cowboys. When he sits down, and even if I'm ready, we sit them down in the waiting room. And on the big screen in front of them is 1990s Super Bowl Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. Now he has no idea. He just feels comfortable. He's like, oh, I kind of like this place. And another girl will come out and mention, oh, I used to be a nurse. Oh, my wife's a nurse. So I'm making all these connectors. So by the time he gets into the room with me or one of the other doctors here, his boundaries are down. He's already friends. And it's like the basis of, if I go to Spain, and I'm a Manchester United fan, if I go to Spain and I see another guy with a Manchester United shirt on like me from Afghanistan, wherever, we're instant friends, because the mirroring part of the brain has picked up that we're on the same side. We start talking, we're hugging each other, we're talking, reminiscing about, it's the same thing we do here. Now, until the patient finishes, we can tell them, but we can't tell them, and we carry on with that so that we can dump into the subconscious brain and pull all that stuff out before we start working with them. The reason why nobody's woke up laughing after sleep is lack of oxygen. So when we wake up, we have little oxygen in our body, because between the hours of 2 and 5 on a normal circadian sleep pattern is when the body is its lowest. It's also when most people die of natural causes, because the body has no defense when we're in that sleep. So when we wake up, the subconscious brain wakes us up. This is our studies, guys, okay? This guy hates oxygen and it loves hypoxic. So what happens is we need to get rid of this guy. So we have a thing in the morning, a routine that gets rid of this guy and introduces the conscious brain with plenty of oxygen, certain routines that we do. So when we get up, this guy's running the day. But you see the subconscious bad guy, the nasty guy that wants to take you back to all the stuff that bad happened to you, it's doing this in the background. Anything it can grab hold of and take charge of the brain, it will do. The smallest thing, just anything. So when people come and they go, oh, Dr. Robb, I had a bad day. Was it really a bad day, or was it 5 minutes you strung out all day? It's always the 5 minutes you strung out all day. Because you can't let that subconscious brain take charge when you've not done your work, because it will ruin your day and become a working part of the mind.
I've definitely been guilty of that. So how do you take control back from the subconscious?
So it's really simple, guys, and it's that simple. You're going to laugh, guys. Is you stop. When you bang your foot here, you nudge there, you go into work, the coffee's not on, stop. Start my day now. And I've done this at 6 p.m. at nighttime. I'm going to start my day now. and wear a rubber band. You call it rubber bands? I'm not sure what you call it. Elastic band
Yeah.
around your wrist, okay? And when you get in that situation, snap that band. It resets the pathways and jolts the central nervous system up. For that second, the conscious brain is going, whoa, what's happening? Then we can concentrate on that, on the good things, and don't reminisce. Because once we start reminiscing or dreaming about all the bad stuff, then we live there. We cannot live there today. We have to live in the now. Subconscious brain, yesterday, fear of the future. Conscious brain, now, at whatever time it is when this goes up. Right now is when I'm enjoying and living life. I don't live, my personal assistant will tell me tonight at 6 p.m. what I have tomorrow. I have no business being in tomorrow, and I have no business being in yesterday because it's gone. And all these little tiny traits and behaviors and thought patterns add up to one thing: finding your identity. Because once you find your true identity, you become a very powerful person. But not many people do. Their identity is at work, their identity is in a marriage. So you get a woman coming out of a marriage and they get divorced. They don't know their identity. They used to be a housewife. It was his football team, his mate, or you work 40 years, the company lets you go. Your life and identity was at work. You was a mechanic at blah, blah. When that's taken away from you, what is your identity? And 99% of the people go, I don't know who I am. So you have to start building that up and finding out your strengths and your traits and all that great stuff that take you into greatness.
The present is all we have, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just the past is gone and the future isn't here yet. So there's no sense worrying about the future or living in the past. It's easy to say, very difficult to do. It sounds like part of what you're describing is this idea of breaking the automaticity of the moment that you're in. So if you do stub your toe, having the foresight to snap the rubber band, so to speak, to jolt yourself back. In order to do that, you need enough self-awareness to know that you're not trapped in this automatic state. How do you build that muscle? I mean, one way that I've heard is meditation. And that's something that I try to do. And I use Sam Harris's app called Waking Up. No affiliation with them or anything, but I found it to be incredibly helpful because one of the things he says sort of reminded me of what you said, which was this idea of just begin again, just start again. You can start again at any moment. And you can decide, you can have a bad day for no reason and you can have a good day for no reason. And you just have to decide which one you want to do.
So I always tell people I don't have bad days, but I do have better days than others. That's as far as I'll go because the way I live today and the people I help, I can't have a bad day. But you're right. You've got to take time for yourself. The yogas, we ask everybody of our patients to do your breath work in the morning, followed by teeth work, followed by mirror work.
What's
it's
teeth
a routine.
work?
Teeth work, yeah. So the breath work is 20 exaggerated breaths in and out, 30 seconds after you wake up. Sit down, do not. I mean, literally. You're really in, really out, really in, really out. And what we're doing is we're flooding the body with oxygen. You see, the only reason why you feel good going to the gym, guys, is not the weights. It's this in between sets. Because we only breathe 45% of our lung capacity. So we need that 100%. So that gets you off to an absolute great start. Go into the bathroom, step 6 feet away from the mirror, and say, I love you 10 times. Simple. Oh, I feel a bit silly saying that. We're stuff in the subconscious mind. Now, do not go near the mirror when you do this because you'll see all your blemishes. That's not how people see you. So you think people see you like that when really 6 feet away is where the blemishes disappear. When's the last time you went into the office? Hey, Jimmy, great. We don't do that. So it gives us more confidence because the blemishes disappear at 6 feet away, optical illusion. Teeth work, change patterns around. If you brush your teeth with the right hand, do a week on left, week on right, week on left, week on right. You're restructuring thought patterns because everything's in patterns. I don't know whether you get on the bus for work or whether you go out on a seaside trip with a load of guys. You get there, a few beers, have fun, make a fool of yourself, get back on the bus. But when you get back on the bus, which seat you sit in? It's usually the one that you travel there in. to the fact that if somebody sat there, you might even say, hey, that's my seat. So we don't realize the patterns that we get stuck in, but we repeat them and we repeat them. And again, the definition of insanity is not doing the same thing over for us anyway, neuroscientists. It's not being able to see my own truth. I don't see these patterns.
That's so fascinating. And it really resonates with me too in my area of work, because I work in TV and film for the most part. And one of the things I've done in the past is write for kids shows. And in kids shows, repetition is really important. And it's described as part of it's like a calming sensation for kids to experience this repetitive thing. They sort of know what's coming. They know that there's going to be a song. They know that the dogs are going to get into their car and go save the day. And then there's going to be another song at the end of that. And so this idea of repetition and comfort seems to traverse childhood and into adulthood as well.
Yeah. And then you can see where addiction is even with children, because they want to watch that show because they know what's happening. And it's crazy. But when you're in comfort, knowing what's going to happen, the brain sits a lot easier. But yeah, it's all, if you can spot a few patterns of what you're doing, guys, at home, you're a better man than me, especially the ones that do most damage, because we just can't see them. We can't see that the arguments with the spouse. And I say one thing to my guys: if you're going to work every day and walking on eggshells and you hate your boss, if you're coming home and you're walking on eggshells and arguments with the partner, you need another partner and you need another job, period. Life is too short for this stuff. It really is too short. I never want anybody to get the age of 80 and realize that, hey, nobody's watching me and I really could have done anything I wanted to do, because you can, and do it now.
Dr. Robb, if someone is secretly struggling right now who's watching this, maybe they know that they have a problem, or they're on the verge of having a problem, or maybe they don't even know they have a problem, but they're just not feeling right. What would you suggest? What's a first step that they can take?
Start dialogue with somebody. Simple. Talk to a friend. If you can talk to a teacher or parents, if you're lucky enough to be able to talk to parents about that, but start dialogue, because once we start keeping them secrets, then patterns will get worse and worse and worse. And then we're too shameful to come out with the patterns. And that's when we're in trouble. You're not the only, I don't care what you're going through. I don't care if your addiction is to stand on the roof naked. There are thousands of people doing that, because we like to think that we're on our own. And if I was to come forward, people will think, who gives a shit? You know, who cares? Because nobody cares. Everyone thinks everyone looking at me and cares. And I make sure nobody cares, guys. They've got their own crap going on. Everyone's just trying to survive. So start dialogue with somebody. If you don't have anybody, research us. Call the office. They'll speak to you. They'll never try and sell you anything. They'll talk to you as a confidential friend. Start dialogue. I mean, that's the best piece of advice. Every time somebody comes in and gets well, that's the first thing. Remember, you always told me to start dialogue. Once we keep it to ourselves, it becomes sick secrets.
Starting dialogue is so important, and there's such a stigma around that. I think especially for men, there's a stigma around therapy and talking about your feelings. So I really appreciate that you're doing this work, and I really want to thank you for coming on and chatting with me today. I like to end the podcast by asking about a time you stepped outside of your comfort zone, personally or professionally. And it sounds like there's been a lot in your life, but curious if one jumps to mind.
So it was kind of by freak accident. I was away with friends in Utah, and they have this ski thing that you go up. It looks like thousands of feet up high, and I'm scared of heights. So we all went there, me and my wife, my friend and his wife, and they was all excited about going on this lift. So he said it's over there. And as I looked, it was this huge, monstrous, like space thing that slid up a rail. And I thought, I can do that. So, oh yeah, of course we can. Yeah. And then we got the tickets and we come round. I went, well, where are we going? Oh, that's just for decoration. We're going there. And and you sat in this thing with no bars on it and nothing. And we were like almost touching the moon. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But when I got back off, I was so proud of myself, stepping out of that comfort zone.
Facing your fears.
Facing my fears. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Robb Kelly, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Mike.